when he went to step on it and the block flew out and he almost came flying out of the truck, and it was funny, maybe a little scary at the same time.
I was not expecting to hear the bang and crash that I heard when I jumped on the Jimmy. That took the jack out of there. You realize we're almost there? Yeah. Surprise is done. It's time to move forward and finish aligning this vehicle. This is a little bit like massage therapy. I've heard a couple pops. Gently let it down. The back of my door is still good. And the bottom of my door is now within, I'd call that a fat 2/16. I'm 1.5 16th away, so I'm gonna call it a success because I'm still fairly good here and I'm acceptable there. So let's move on to something different.
The fundamental problem with aligning a door in a vehicle is that you always have to start with two shapes. One is the shape of the door, and the other is the shape of the opening. So I'm going to do a very poor job, but if I've got an opening that is a 1/4 inch larger and a 1/4 inch larger and a 1/4 inch larger here and there, I can center the door inside an opening that is the same shape. Unfortunately, what happens is people bring us vehicles that don't have nice, even shapes. And so in the case of the 1971 Jimmy, because the vehicle has been settling, we've got a vehicle that has more like the shape of this, to where I've got a triangle here and here to deal with. And so since I'm incapable of stretching the bottom of the door out on both sides to meet with the odd shape of the vehicle, because in this case what's happening is the vehicle has been sort of settling towards the ground, because I can't reshape the door into the shape of this, what would be a trapezoid, to have two triangles on the end, I have no choice but to bring the vehicle in here and in here, because you have to bring this triangle to the point where it's square, and only then can you actually align the doors. So what happens is people bring us cars all the time that were put together crooked. And if they're put together crooked and they're painted, there's very little option you have in turning triangles into parallel lines, because you typically have to cut metal or move metal, like we had to do with the 71 Jimmy, to get rid of those triangles and actually make parallel lines. Without parallel lines, you'll never get straight doors.
Aligning this Jimmy is a fairly complex thing, because there was already a bunch of work done that was probably not right, and then we had to come back in it, and anytime you try and shore up something that was already welded not quite straight is a challenge. So seeing some of the results actually coming out positive, that's actually a really big deal. Oh yeah, look at that. You see how it just lines up beautifully. You good?
I'm good.
All right. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Dan.
When the Jimmy first got here, we thought it was mostly a mechanical build for Chris. And yes, we had quite a list for him.
Got a lot of issues on it. It's a little cantankerous.
Power steering pump leaking, power steering gearbox leaking out of the input shaft. I think the starter's leaking oil. So we got a starter that's leaking. Valve covers are leaking. Oil filter is leaking. Oh, the transmission pan is leaking badly.
Is there anything that's not leaking that may be a shorter list?
The brakes were a major concern. Just come to a fairly aggressive stop and tell me what you think of the brakes. Go ahead and hit them fairly hard. Now, how hard did you hit them right there?
As far as it go.
But if somebody ran right out in front of you, you can hit these brakes as hard as you want, and it just sort of rolls to a stop, right?
I personally would not trust my family in it.
And Chris couldn't move forward with the brake lines, differential, axles, transmission, transfer case, electrical, steering, suspension, or the leaking motor. So now that the Jimmy is through all the structural problems that theoretically didn't exist, we are actually at a point where you can start your build.
Yeah, those rocker support boxes were a mess. And somebody went through a lot of trouble to hide that.
If the guy had spent as much time fixing as he did faking, we probably wouldn't have had a lot of work to do. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but
You can open the door now. You know what I'm saying?
it's no longer World Wrestling Federation. You can just open the door and you can close the door. So now it's ready for the new chapter, and that's you, and that's brakes, gearboxes, electrical, all the little things. It's time for Chris to take on the mechanicals that he was supposed to do a while ago. Chris can take on all the mechanicals that were supposed to have started a good 2 months ago now. But that's the way it goes, folks. We don't know what we don't know until we find it. Justin will now have a structurally sound truck. Chris and our team will make it mechanically sound. Stay tuned for when we get to move forward on the next parts of the build. Now you guys do the things like hit that like, subscribe, and that notification bell. Let us know in the comments what the craziest unexpected delay on a project you've ever uncovered is. Take care.
That's